Hey everyone, this is Erika and Will, and we are just having a chat about the process of estimating and allocating days to different projects as part of the research prioritization process.
Yeah, thanks for joining me, Erica. I like the color coding that you have here for gold, silver, and bronze.
Yeah, so we have pulled up my oh, it's actually for Q2, but it's my research priority calculator. Yeah, I color code everything. So this is sort of standard across our team. We have the projects, her parts are filled out by the researcher and then blue by product, and then that gives us these levels of support. And then what I do and what I've just learned to do to bring clarity and predictability to my life in my work is to estimate for each of the projects how much time it will take. So here you can see I just like really clunkily set it up so that it sums the number of days and lets me know if I'm over or under. This is maybe not a good example because it's way over, but I will use this in my conversations with my PM to say, okay, let's say we had to make a trade-off between different projects. I can say, well, this one so-and-so can lead or can do these components, and then that would reduce the number of days I have, like for one that might be on the cusp of being gold or silver, or something like that. I want to pull up this other one because it's a better example. So here is the Q3 and 4. So my PM is going on leave, and so we're planning ahead. And so that may be good to look at because usually for the foundational projects, those will carry over. So here's for 3 and 4, and you can kind of see like these are the ones where we're going to execute, and then these are like 5 days for wrap up. And then this one will be some planning, and then it will be execute in the next quarter. And then what I'm able to do too, which is helpful for my team, is to use the handbook guideline. I forget what the exact percentage is, but I know that it kind of breaks down to 4 days. So I think maybe that means it's 10%, but I'm able to just allocate for all bronze like 4 days based on the distribution of time that UXR should spend on different levels of projects. And I'm making an inference, usually the bronze projects are solution validation. And then that helps me to kind of prioritize projects. And then what we do is for the bronze ones, we list them out in order of priority too. So that I know, I think there's some this quarter that I need to change this around a little bit, but this one is going to be the number one. We're still scoring a few last ones. So this one kind of just come in. You can see even in the priority scoring that one is coming in as silver, but I have too many silver projects. So then that becomes a high priority bronze. And then if that one needs more, like, and I've allotted 1.5 days for it as I kind of plan. And then if that goes over, I'll like kind of like let the team know I'm going over on this one. I'm not going to have much room for other bronze level support.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. And then this relates back to kind of the planning in the issues where I'll go through and say, okay, we have 11 days allocated for this. And then once a week, I'll go through and tally the days. like as I'm doing my write-up for like what happened this week, I'll just tally the days and then keep track. And then I can also say like, oh, we're going over on this project, which is usually fine, but it just means that there has to be a give and take with other projects.
So I'm just kind of curious about how the days work. So like for bronze projects, for example, like I'll get a request like I got today. Somebody, puts a screener survey into Qualtrics. They like want me to review it and provide some feedback. It takes maybe like 30 minutes, maybe an hour tops. Do you kind of count that as like a full day being spent on that project? Just trying to understand a little bit more about how the days work.
Yep. And I generally what I say is that a half a day is 4 hours. And then I will let if I think that something is gonna like build up. So it's a little bit different. So for bronze projects, that I'm not doing like on a project level as much as I'm like in the past week, how much time did I spend overall on bronze?
Gotcha.
So it's because then that's much easier, right? Where you're like, oh yeah, I did that hour, those 2 hours, that 4 hour stint, which was like, a longer thing, and then that accrues. And then I won't track it on a project specific level unless it's really getting a lot of time for some reason. And some of them take more time just because you have to like familiarize yourself with the study that you're working on, right? So you maybe can't answer questions about a screener unless you really understand the project, the technical aspects, like the scope of it. So that's why it's helpful too to see those projects coming, because then it takes less mental effort because you've already talked about the project and kind of gotten it onto the radar. But yeah, so generally also for the silver stuff, what I'll do is the lowest I'll track is 0.25 for the week. But I think the way that things tend to happen is they tend to happen in bigger spurts. So I think that hasn't been hard to like track, right? It's like if we're going to make progress on this silver project, we're going to spend at least a half a day in a week.
Okay.
So yeah, that's probably is how long you're measuring, like the scope at which you measure and insert and track the days. So I think if it feels like you just worked, sometimes some of us might work the equivalent of a week in 3 days, right? In which case it's you track then the hour increments. So you could technically spend a day or a few days, depending on how you work your hours, because we have that flexibility too.
So you mentioned that you go in roughly once a week and update this particular issue. When it comes to writing in those days and number of hours and things, is it just based on your reflection of the week, or do you actually go into your like Google Calendar or some other tool and like count up, okay, it took, I worked on it this day, and this day, so that's 3 days.
Yep. Or like if I do a big stint that's not on my calendar, I tend to block out my calendar actually like quite a bit. And so I can use that to kind of refresh what happened. Or if I am working too fast and unable to kind of track, I'll just like on a post-it be kind of noting like I worked on this and it took me an hour.
Okay.
Or just 20 minutes. And that helps me too, not because like I'm putting pressure, but I just it helps me then understand like how long these things might take.
Mhm.
But I
Okay.
think it's important that it doesn't feel like being micromanaged, but you're doing it yourself, so it shouldn't feel micromanaged. But probably like the way to make it feel less like that would be then to like do it on a 2-week planning, or you know what I mean? Like whenever, or let that be more flexible based on when you update that thing. So like being a little looser about how often you update the issue with the days spent.
Mhm.
And then that's just remembering how long has happened between updates.
Cool. And do you have conversations with business partners or stakeholders where you're looking at this together, or are you just hearing kind of after the fact they're noticing your number of days and, talking to you about it, you know, in an async manner?
We do use it as part of our quarterly planning. And in a way like that helps too, because you can have a project that's like all of these silver projects are not as important. Or they require different things. And so that's another way to have some level of like more support or service for everyone, because you can say like, well, this is silver, but I can give more days on this if this is really important. But it's not like cross stage per se, so it's not gonna up level into, or it's not like particularly challenging methodologically, so it might not up level into a gold. But what we can do is put more of those silver days on this. Yeah, I think it's just maybe just important to know that this should only be helpful for everyone. But I've been noticing too, like it does actually help me, like, because midway through the quarter, I'll kind of tally and see how I'm doing, like how many days I've worked or not. And I've actually been able to estimate with a pretty good degree of fidelity, and like been a day or two off or under. But then what I'll do is use this business count calculator that counts the days in a quarter. And then I have days off. And then one of the best practices to make sure you have buffer days for 6 days. And then I include also research stuff that we end up doing, so that it's not forcing that out. And I think what I've learned to do is add more research ops days.
Mhm.
um, and so like for this one, I have 3 days off just for contribute, because that'll just take days out.
Okay.
And then that helps me too, because I'm like, oh, I'm only working on this project and I have to juggle all these other things in, or like this should be a higher priority, but I'm not working on it yet. So then will cue me to touch base with the team again about it.